Hey, court reporters, welcome back to my channel. Listen, I am here offering a public apology to Raven from season 3 of Love is Blind. Listen, Raven, if you're watching this, I'm sorry I misjudged you from the first 4 episodes that dropped. Listen, I didn't really get to say that much because I only did like 2 live streams covering the first 4 episodes. But her evolution from episode 5 on, so 5, 6, 7, really has been incredible to watch. Like when she first appeared on the show, I felt like producers really tried to get us to believe that she was someone who was super shallow, using the show just to become an influencer or to scout for new sugar daddies. Like I really felt like she was giving sugar baby vibes. And it kind of seems like she's one of the most genuine people now to me. And I know some people are going to read me down in the comments, but this is just the way I feel about her as the episodes kind of progress. So what I'm going to do is take you guys through episode 1 up until episode 7 so that you can see the evolution of my opinion of Raven's character. So when episode 1 aired, I literally said that I didn't like Raven. She gave off a very annoying, not serious, very pretentious kind of vibe to me. She reminded me a lot of Charisse from the Real Housewives of Potomac. You know, they just this whole I'm too cool for everybody, I'm too hot for everybody, I'm too rich for everybody, I'm too good for everybody kind of vibe. And I really did not like it. But I think we a little bit of a hint of her genuine personality and her willingness to be vulnerable to this experience in that episode as well, that we kind of overlooked because of the odd personality vibes and traits and selfish personality traits that were overly highlighted while that was downplayed. So in her relationship and courtship with Bartise, Raven was actually the first person there to express her feelings. And I always think that the first person to express their feelings is always the most vulnerable and not risk taker, but like the one who seems, you know what I mean? Like it takes a lot to be the first, especially as a woman, because it's not traditionally looked good upon for women to express our feelings towards men. There's always all sorts of types of rules, right? Never text him first, never respond to his text too quickly, never call him first, all sorts of, never say I love you first. But for Raven to really open up like that, I thought was, quite brave of her. So now as we moved on into episode 2, Raven really kind of put her reputation out on the line for people to make all sorts of assumptions about her. Listen, she gave me sugar baby vibes. She gave me escort vibes. I'm not even going to lie, right? So in episode 2, she kind of just like tells Bartise, listen, I've got something very important to tell you. Like there's something that I do that men don't typically like. So I was like, well, what is she doing? Is she doing OnlyFans? Is she stripping? What is it that she's doing? And she says that it's in the service life. So at this point, she says that she's a bottle service waitress, which to me did not require that level of dramaticness, but I digress. I've never been a bottle service girl, so I don't know how that affects their relationships. Maybe it is something that typically is a point of contention in the romantic relationships of bottle service girls. If you're a bottle service hottie, let me know in the comments if that has ever affected your opinion. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe for more videos. So not only that, but then she goes into another awkward kind of like, announcement again. She goes, Bartise, there's something else I have to tell you. And what does she say? She says that she's used to dating successful older men, which to me means 2 things. Either A, she's a sugar baby, either B, she's an escort. And I know that people use those things interchangeably, but I do believe that they are different classifications of sex work, but I digress. So she talks about how like she still has some of the gifts that they gave to her. So I'm wondering, well, what is it? Is it a car? Are they still paying her rent? Did she get a boob job from them? Did she get something else from them? I don't know, but I am quite fascinated. But it really leads me to believe that she is in this experience looking for someone who is going to take care of her after marriage rather than looking for a genuine emotional connection. So it kind of like, continued to make me feel as though she was too vapid for the show and that she was not very serious about looking for a life partner. So at this point, her relationship with Bartise starts to kind of disintegrate, and Bartise starts leaning more towards Nancy. And I kind of felt as though Raven went for SK more as a retaliation to that rather than an initial kind of spark with SK, right? But I digress. It could just be in the editing. Maybe they both fall for other people around the same time. I don't know. One thing that I did know, though, that was a little bit naughty of me was that I felt as though Raven assumed that SK might be rich because he's an international student from Nigeria and he's studying at Berkeley. He's about to start at Berkeley. And listen, I went to school at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. And one thing I will tell you that I learned from going there, I didn't really know Nigerian people before like going to Carleton. Like I grew up in like really white suburbs. Like we were like the only Black family in like our town. So like I knew nothing, right? And so I go to university and we have all these international students. And let me tell you something. We had European international students. They were typically kind of just like regular people. But the Nigerian international students were rolling in it. They were balling. Like their parents would be buying them houses so that they can study in them, rent out the other rooms to other people and make money like that. Like they were balling. You know, it was not uncommon for their, look at this. It was not uncommon for their families to be buying them houses. And not only that, but the Chinese international students were balling as well. Their parents were buying them houses. They were buying them luxury. These people were rolling around in luxury cars as university students. So I kind of felt the assumption, because she was talking about all these materialistic dating habits that she has and whatnot, dating people who take care of her. I was like, maybe that was like a little bit of the something that she had in her head that, hey, this guy's international. It's not cheap to be an international student. He's going to Berkeley. He's Nigerian. Like, yo, the money might be there. So that was kind of the vibe that I was feeling. And as we leaned over to episode 3, I kind of continued to feel that way. I felt like either she was with him for materialistic purposes or just to remain on the show to push herself as some kind of an influencer. Because remember, she talked so much ad nauseum even about being a Pilates instructor. And we all know that the influencer life can provide a comfortable lifestyle, okay? And so it kind of felt as though that might have been her MO. It's not unfortunately, it's not unusual. It's not unheard of for someone to stay on the show despite not being in love with their fiance, just to get some more airtime to kind of pop off as an influencer or something like that. And so in episode 3, when she finally meets her fiance, SK, I did not sense any immediate chemistry between the two of them. The first kiss seemed very platonic, especially when you compare it to the first kiss of other couples. You know, they were making out and stuff. And Raven and SK, they just shared a little church peck on the mouth. You know, some people kiss their parents on the mouth like that. Okay. Like it was not romantic. It was not passionate. It was not sexy. It was not, we're getting married. You know what I mean? It reminded me very much of like Tamara Braxton, how she used to kiss her husband, Vincent Herbert. Do you remember? It used to be like very like, all right, now run along, because I'm not doing this again for another month, one kiss a month. So once they get to the hotel room to spend their first night together, they couldn't have been any further from each other in the bed as well. So I really felt as though she was not attracted to SK. SK, on the other hand, was very vocal about his attraction to Raven. So that's the only reason why I feel like Raven's the one not attracted to him. You know, I'm not making assumptions based on their looks. It's just based on their actions and based on the stuff that they're saying. So it seems like if SK had his way, they would have been a lot more closer. They would have been maybe cuddling in the bed or something more romantic than what it was that they were doing. You know, all we saw was them far away from each other in the bed and the cameraman panning in on her feet every 2 seconds, right? She did say as well, she did admit that she was only emotionally attached to SK for the moment, which, listen, I understand. I think especially for us as women, emotional attachment comes first before physical attachment sometimes. And I will add, though, that I feel like emotional connection is even more important than physical connection, at least in my case anyway. So I definitely would give her a pass for that. I think she's actually quite smart to focus on the emotional and let the physical kind of follow up with that. So now, as we move into episode 4, Raven, I really started to feel like did the show to become a fitness influencer. So she did like a date with her fiance, SK. The other couples, they would go on the beach, they would do picnics, they would go on walks. What does she do? She sets up a Pilates class with him. And I felt like that was to give us a taste of what would happen if we bought her Patreon membership, if we subscribed to her YouTube, if we followed her on TikTok or whatever. You know what I mean? It really felt like she was pushing for this angle. I'm not going to hate. I love a good hustle, but not if you're going to be playing around with people's feelings. Am I saying that she's playing with SK's feelings? I'm not sure. I can't say that, right? But in episode 4, that is how I felt before the evolution kind of took place. You know, I really felt like she's going to be launching an app or something like that, like a Patreon type of thing, an apparel line. I don't know what it is, but it really felt that way rather than her actually genuinely connecting or anything like that. So that's like the only really like thing that stood out to me about her in episode 4. But as we evolve into episode 5, something kind of changes, right? And it feels like we are introduced to a completely different person. So in episode 5, F boy Bartise is trying to get with Raven at the pool. Like he's like, "Oh, you're like so beautiful. I feel like we're both so beautiful. Like on paper, we would look like such a good couple." And he keeps kind of hinting at wanting to get with her. And Raven tells us one-on-one in her confessional with us that Bartise never complimented her once in the pod, but now that he sees her in the flesh, he can't stop complimenting her. So she feels as though he's very shallow, and she doesn't find it flattering. And I was like, yes, girl, 2 snaps for you for not falling for the okey doke. Shallow child who had no business doing this experiment. And that's when I realized that she truly was serious about this. You know, like she could have played coy, she could have flirted a little bit with like Colleen or like Cole, but she stuck to her guns, she stuck to her engagement, and she had integrity in that moment. And that is when I was like, oh my God, I was totally wrong about this girl. Like she really is in it to win it. She's serious about her fiance. And she literally tells Bartise that they probably don't even have that much in common. Like they both like fitness and nutrition. So what? You cannot build a life off of a shared liking for those things. You need to have more things in common. And she also tells him that she's very happy in her engagement. She feels like she chose the right person, and that they are building something emotional, like off their emotional connection, that really could be something great. You know, she straight up says that she definitely feels as though SK is the better match for her. And I loved watching her shut down F boy Bartise in that moment. Like he really wanted his ego stroked. He really wanted her to flirt with him and kind of like leave the door open for the idea that she might get with him. And she shut it all the way down. And that's when she became my girl. Okay. And then as the episode progresses, remember in episode 1, we talked about how she was the first person to be vulnerable about her liking for the other person when she was with Bartise. Well, she does it again with SK. She really tells SK that she feels like she is falling in love with him. And I was like, look at you, Raven. Like she really is doing the damn thing. She really is speaking from the heart. She really is taking the first steps. She really is being brave in both of her connections. And I love that. I really think that this could be something. And so I am totally rooting for her relationship with SK. And then in episode 6, we see her kind of take steps to advance towards kind of integrating with his culture, or at least honoring it. So SK teaches her a couple of words in his language, and she seems pretty eager to learn them, which I think is a huge thing. And then what happens? His family comes over. They start eating traditional Nigerian food. She enjoys it. She compliments it. She talks about how she's willing to wear some Nigerian kind of traditional dressings for her first wedding, which is a huge deal, you guys. It really is. I'm sure whenever Raven imagined her wedding, it was probably a traditional American wedding dress and an American wedding veil. So for her to give that up right now to fit into his Nigerian culture, I think it's huge. And I don't think it can be overstated at all how, you know, how big of a sacrifice that is. You know, I seriously do think that she should be commended for that, because it is not easy at all. You know, at that moment, I was like, all right, she's 1,000% serious. She's 1,000% in this. And we, not just me, we completely misjudged her from the earlier episodes. And I don't know if it's because we were biased against her, or if it's because she was misrepresented, or if it's because she misrepresented herself. You know, one thing about these producers is that they pick a way to portray each person, and they discard everything that kind of goes against this kind of like narrow view that they want us to have of these characters. But I feel like Raven really has been breaking the mold in these past few episodes. It's not easy, you guys, trying to blend into someone else's culture and stuff like that. Like, I did it once. I would not do it again. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I'm going to be straight up with you. I would not do it again. You know, get with a family that speaks a language other than French or Spanish. Like, sorry, not doing it again. I did that for like a year and a half, and it was really hard, and it was just not a good experience. So the fact that Raven is so eager to go into this to me is a huge thing, having like been on the other side of that. It's not easy. It's very isolating, and it's hard. Okay. And if you've done that, like if you've married into a culture or dated into a culture where they don't speak the same language as you, and they kind of insist on like doing everything within this culture, you know what I mean? Like constantly, that's a lot, like does Raven have to constantly eat Nigerian food? Does she constantly have to be around the language? I don't know, but it seems like it is going to be a big part of her life. And so that's not an easy undertaking. So I definitely applaud her for being willing to take that on. So now SK kind of opens up to Raven about how he needs to live like a student to save money. And Raven talks about how she's not willing to decrease her quality of life. And listen, I know some people probably hated on her for this, but I'm Team Raven on this. To me, when you get married to someone, they're supposed to add to your life, not take away from it. So if I'm already living a great life, I don't want to live a worse off life than I'm living now just because I got married to somebody. Sorry, but no, I think that's reasonable. But SK was also reasonable, saying, listen, I got a full scholarship. It's going to be okay. I'm going to afford my apartment in California, but I'm going to cut down on my expenses. That's it. And then we'll go back and forth. I didn't understand. This is where I kind of like went back to being like, are you old Raven again? Because she talks about how she wants him to help pay the rent on her apartment in Texas while he's living in California. And I just didn't understand how that was supposed to work for a student or anything like that. I felt like that was kind of odd. And at the same time, I also didn't really understand why he even did the show in general as someone who was about to go away for 2 years to study out of state. Like, what was the point? What was the reason there? You know what I mean? I kind of felt like in that moment that she kind of regretted it, like her decision to get with someone who's going to be a student, and wanted to go back to, finding people who would kind of fund her lifestyle instead. So there you have it, guys. A little bit of an evolution of Raven's personality throughout the series. Like she starts off really, really shallow, episodes 1 through 4. And then episodes 5 through 7, you see a completely different side of her where she's really willing to step into a completely different world, learn new customs, new traditions, eat new foods, learn a little bit of a new language as well. And so, again, I have to say that I completely misjudged her when it came to the first couple of episodes. And it's been really great to kind of see the evolution as the season kind of progresses. So I really want to know if you guys have had a similar kind of feeling about her. Did you start off thinking of her one way and then you ended the season kind of thinking of her a different way? I know we're not yet at the end. We still have a couple more to go. So this is only applicable up until episode 7. Okay. So as the rest of the episodes kind of drop, maybe our opinions will evolve again. And if they evolve or change, it means that I'm going to have to do another video taking this back. And I hope I don't have to, because right now I've ended off this part of the season really liking her. Okay. And I want it to stay that way. I want to root for the women. One thing that's really worth noting in the show is that they very often paint the women to be these awful people while they try to kind of like fluff up the men. So you really have to be careful with that. Like if you look at the season and think about your most hated people, more likely than not, they're women that you don't like on this show. And that is not your fault. That is something that is the producers. That's something that they're doing on purpose. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Okay. But in the meantime, let me know what you think. If you've been facing the same kind of like dilemma or crossroads in your feelings about Raven as I have, in the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.